Hi. Oh, hi, Deb.
Hi, I was looking for the unmute. Sorry, my dogs are hopefully going to behave. We're
Well,
keeping our fingers crossed. She always likes to say hi. This is our Great Dane. So she always likes to
oh,
see
honey.
who I'm talking to. It's fine.
How sweet. I love it.
Awesome. Okay, so I have the Aurora slide up, and then as soon as we start, I will turn that over to you.
Okay.
So everyone that's joining us, thank you so much for being here today. We'll get started probably about 12:02. I will send your CEU certificate along with a copy of the presentation this afternoon as soon as we are finished. So no worries there. I'll put that in the chat too so everyone sees it. And I did look, I was trying to figure out if they can unmute themselves for you.
Yeah. And show themselves.
I don't think they're able to show themselves in the webinar,
Okay.
fortunately. It looks like what I can do is I can hit the allow to talk button. So when you ask for volunteers, maybe like however many you need, we'll take the first, 2 or 3 in the chat, and then I can allow them to talk if that works.
Okay. Yeah, that should
So
work.
however many you need, just tell me, and then I will do that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Hi, everyone joining. Hi, Sonia. Hi, Melanie. Oh, someone's joining from Texas. That's fun.
We get people from like the UK, and it's really cool.
Lake Havasu. Cool. Hi, I love how everybody's just introducing themselves without even being asked to. That is so nice.
Isn't that amazing? I know that. Well, everybody kind of has the like hang of it by now. We've been doing it for a couple of years, so it's kind of cool. I love it.
There's 66 people on so far.
Here we go, Canada.
Canada,
That's
awesome.
awesome. Flagstaff. Oh, I wish I was in Flagstaff right now.
I don't think it's as cool as we think it is up there, though. I was just
No.
up there. It wasn't very cool, but maybe Therese can tell us.
Yeah, it's definitely California. California is definitely cooler, probably.
I'd like to be in Canada. Yeah, me too, Patricia. I'm in Mesa as well.
Ditto, ditto. Oh, and Rosemary was asking, no, nobody is seen in the webinar format, but you are on the webinar. We just can't see you. All we have is just names.
Yeah, so you can work on your progress notes simultaneously and nobody would know.
And there you go. Nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to be.
Oh,
No worries. No worries. Yeah, it's this format. And welcome, Rosemary. I'm glad that this is your first time. A lot of times I like to see when we get new people. Awesome, Illinois. All right, so I'm going to shrink that really quick. I'm going to shrink that. So thank you everybody for joining us today. We are going to go ahead and get started, and then as more people join, that's all good. My name is Debbie Elder. I'm from Aurora Behavioral Hospitals. We have 2 hospitals here in Arizona, one in Tempe and one in Glendale. We serve adolescents and adults 13 and up on an inpatient and outpatient basis. And we also have a special needs unit at our Tempe hospital for kiddos 8 to 17 with intellectual or developmental disabilities that are having those really severe behaviors. So if you're in Arizona and want to learn more about us, please feel free to send me an email and I will get you set up with myself or one of my wonderful team members, depending on which side of the valley you're in. So today we are going to hear from Katie Tiffany. She's a licensed professional counselor in Mesa, Arizona. Originally, she's from Portland, Oregon, and spent 16 years in the teaching field. She now specializes in PTSD and trauma and uses EMDR and parts work. She and her team provide both in-person and telehealth options. She also offers group therapy for people with PTSD, both in person and online. Katie offers a writing circle for sexual assault survivors. That's cool. And provides a course in burnout prevention that is eligible for ethics CEUs. So we may have you do that at some point. That would be awesome. She loves parts work as it provides more flexibility and fun into her sessions. And she loves sharing it with other professionals. Thank you so much, Katie. I'm going to stop sharing mine now. There we go. You should be able to share. And I'm going to mute myself.
All right. Thank you, Deb, for the introduction. Let me see if I can pull this up okay. All right. So hopefully everybody can see that. And yeah, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Happy to be here. I don't know where the chat went. Because I would like to see the chat.
Are you using two or one screen?
I just have the one screen.
You should be able to, as you're sharing, up at the top should be the bar that should let you see the options, or at the bottom, depending on.
Oh, right here. This chat, it just came up.
Possibly.
Hold on. Sorry, everybody. Okay, I see it now. I got it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Can you? Okay. Sounds good. Okay, guys. So I'm noticing that people are already in the chat, and I love that. I would really love to have this be an interactive webinar. So could you put in the chat like the clientele of people that you work with and maybe what your specialty is, or if you, yes, thank you, Kimberly. Yeah, just like that. She says she's done some IFS stuff, which we'll talk about the difference between parts work and IFS. So if you guys can just chat a little bit in there for a second so I can get a read of who is here. Okay, good. EMDR, awesome, good. Some experience with parts work. All right. Good, good. All right, so I'm just going to keep chatting while you guys are putting them in, and I'm reading every single one of them as they're coming up. I don't know about you all, but I can get pretty bored pretty quickly in the work that I do. And when I started to learn more about parts work, it again just like changed a lot of things for me. It became more fun. I was able to incorporate it into EMDR. And so I love Taylor Swift. That's cute. Me too. So good. So I'm glad you guys are here, and hopefully today you'll learn just some fun things that you can already take back into your sessions today if you're in the middle of a work day. Tomorrow. Good. Keep sharing in the chat. Fantastic. Okay. I'll try to go to the next slide. Not letting me go to the next slide. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share for a second and try to go to the next slide. This is going to be really annoying.
It might, sometimes mine, like if you click on it, it should work just like your normal computer, hopefully.
Yeah, I thought so.
Usually.
Okay, here we go. Okay, can you see that, Deb?
Yep.
I'm just going to leave it like that for a while so that I can share it. Okay. All right, guys. So this is kind of like our first introduction for fun. So you can see our little people in the tree. Which one of those do you identify with right now? Which one is kind of your overall general attitude where you're at? So just take a moment and check them out, and then just type in the chat which one you identify with. Oh, hip hop dance. That's awesome, Penny. Oh, look at all these butterflies. And another butterfly. There's the balloon. Climbing up the tree. Good. Awesome. So I would like to hear, Deb, from one of the butterfly people. So is there a way that you could unmute one of the butterfly
Sure.
people?
Sure. Let's see. Go up here. All right. Okay. I practiced this. All right, there we go. There we go. Okay, Leslie Carrasco. Can you talk? Hopefully. Maybe. Oh, if you can unmute. Maybe not. Let's see. Let me go up here a little ways.
I'm trying to unmute her too.
Butterfly. Let's see here, JB. Let's
in the
see.
field.
Sorry, I'm looking through here. Angela, let's do that. Okay, so Angela West. I don't know if you can unmute and
I sure can.
Yay.
Hi, guys.
Hi. Can you share with us why you chose the butterfly?
Oh, goodness. Well, I love the color yellow, and the butterfly just looked so happy. And the little character, he's kind of like reaching out to the butterfly, trying to play with it, trying to reach that source of happiness, but also doing it from like a really stable place on the tree, kind of like near the center of the tree. He's not out on a limb, kind of, in danger. So he just seems like he's in a really stable place right now, and he's just kind of reaching out for further happiness.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, I want to hear from Brenda, who's in the field. If we can unmute Brenda. Brenda, can you unmute yourself? Yeah, there you are.
Okay, yeah. So I have fallen out of trees, out of swings, off ladders. Balloons always pop. So that's too much activity for me that's going on. So being out in the field looking at the clouds is what I would be doing.
Very nice. I love that. Good. Thank you. All right. Awesome. Okay. Thank you. So we're going to move on then. I appreciate you guys for all sharing. And Leslie, I see that your screen was frozen. That's okay. No worries. All right. So I'm going to go to kind of the difference. Someone had mentioned that they had done some IFS work. So I'm just going to go quickly over just these three different columns and kind of explain a little bit what the parts work is. So first we have the ego states. Okay. And ego states are just how are you going to react in a certain situation, a certain time and place, right? So we can't always be going for the butterfly, right? And we can't always be out in the field, although I wish that we could. So depending on your situation, the environment that you're in is where a certain ego state is going to show up. So if we just take a second and think about if a client gets upset with you, most likely you're going to go into your therapist, your caretaker, your provider, ego state self, and you will handle it a certain way. Okay, now when you get home and you have a partner or your child or your kid gets upset with you, a different ego state will show up. Okay, and we might call that mom or dad or partner, spouse. And then we have the other example I have here is an authority figure that might get upset with you. So your supervisor, your boss, someone like that who has a little bit of authority, we might sink into a different part in that space. So what Robin Shapiro did in her book and her interventions, has anybody taken any Robin Shapiro's courses? You can write in the chat if you have. What she did was she wrote this awesome book, and all the interventions come from here. this book to kind of explore those ego states and explore which one of them is doing what at each time, and to really kind of get the parts to integrate and work together. And so that's what kind of parts work is. And there's some examples there as well. And so how that is different from internal family systems is internal family systems is a modality in itself that was created, invented, whatever you want to call it, by Richard Schwartz. And I'm not an expert in this modality. Some of you on here are way more educated in this modality than I am. To my understanding, it's more scripted in terms of the names of the different family system that you have inside of you. So you've got exiles and the ones that want to run away, and you've got managers, and you've got these different names. So it is kind of similar. What I like about the parts is that it can be super flexible. You get to come up with your own names for your part, the one that's in the field, the one that's chasing the butterfly. I heard some people on the ladder as well. So you can create names for each of your parts in a way that's a little bit more flexible and fun for you and your clients. So do you have any questions on that? I won't be able to answer every single question you put in the chat, but I do want to just pause for a moment. And if anyone has question on that I could try to clarify. Sonia, to answer your question, yes, we're looking at intervention, and the intervention is parts work for the ego states. I don't know if that makes sense. Yes. So these are ego states. You go in and out of different ego states. And so the parts work is the intervention that works with your different ego states. I hope that makes sense. I will show this book on a different slide as well. And maybe, Deb, you could put this link in the chat, or someone could put a link in the chat.
Sure. And what is it called? I can't see what's so easy ego state interventions. Okay.
Yep. And it's Robin Shapiro. Yeah. And I did email her and tell her that I was going to be teaching her stuff, and she did give me her okay to do that. So it's good. Okay. All right, awesome. So I'm going to go to the next slide and put some things in practice. So some of you have probably already heard this come out in your sessions, or you've said it yourself, okay? And it sounds like this. There's a part of me that wants to do, and there's a part of me that, right? And so we can really look at this too with substance use, right? There's a part of me that really wants to use, and there's a part of me that wants to be sober. Okay. So really, I'm sure that all of you have done some of this work already without even knowing. And so how you would follow up on that is, well, which part of you wants to use? Right? And it's most likely someone that wants to escape, and which part of you wants to stay sober. Can I have you guys in the chat who works with substance use, substance abuse? I saw some earlier. Can you put in the chat who works with substances? Cool. Amanda, Kimberly. All right, good. Deb, would you randomly choose one of those people to unmute themselves and kind of talk about this with me?
Okay, I just unmuted Kimberly Speed.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Kimberly. Can you hear us?
Yes. So I work with inmates that are in Arizona Department of Corrections for drug-related charges or drugs. And we talk about, so there's part of me that still wants to use, and then there's another part of me that wants to stop using, and learning to open up a dialogue with those parts instead of just letting them run the show, I guess you could say. I've even had them like rate like what percentage of you wants to quit versus still using.
Mhm.
So
That's great.
it really resonates with them too. Once they start doing parts work, it really it seems to really speak to them, and it's been quite helpful.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I would say too, like, I don't know if you already do this too, but you can even take it a step further and make it be more fun, right? I mean, I'm sure you are fun. I'm not saying that you're not. But
I
like,
can always be funner though.
but like, what's that woman's name or that kid's name, right? Because most of the substance stuff starts early on. Most of it, I don't want to make a generalization, but it's usually like a younger part. Is that accurate, Kimberly?
I would say so, yes.
Yeah, so maybe it's like a 14-year-old or a 16-year-old, or it's the kid that maybe ran away or they were being abused at home, or maybe they identify with a certain name for that particular part, right? Oh, well, that was Johnny and now I'm Jonathan. For example, I've heard that too with adult men or adult women too. Like they might have gone by a nickname when they were younger, so they'll identify with that part. So that might be something kind of fun that you could do as far as having them kind of identify what would be the name of the part that wants to use. What would you call him or her? And who's the one that wants to stay sober, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about that apparently normal part in a minute on the next couple of slides. But good, Kimberly, thank you. Is there anything else
Welcome.
that you can share on that of what you do and how that helps you in your interventions?
Yeah, I usually start with the critical or the judgmental part because they're usually pretty prevalent. So I kind of go there first and then try to have them get to know those parts of them, and then to also be willing to listen to them. And like it can feel a little funny talking to yourself and waiting for an answer, but it can also be empowering.
Yeah.
But yeah, I usually start with the critic.
I love that. We're going to talk about that critic because we all have one, especially us in this profession, right? Like we all know we're very critical, we're hard on ourselves. So that's a great place to start. Some of us call it the judge, right? The one who's going to come down and judge you for your actions and all of that. So good. I love that, Kimberly. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
Good. All right, cool. Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna do a little interactive. So I'm gonna read to you straight from the book. And this is right at the beginning in her introduction. And she actually wrote this for mental health care providers. So this is actually an intervention for you and not for your clients. So if it's possible, kind of take a breath and hopefully minimize any distractions. It won't take very long. And we're just going to sit for a moment. And I'm going to read to you, and this will be a good introduction of how we're going to get some ego states here to come out. Okay, so everybody take a breath. Let it go. All right, so I want you to go inside and notice as you sit deeply into your chair or wherever else you're seated that you are an adult. And as an adult, you have boundaries. You have professional and other skills, and you have a very broad perspective. Think of yourself acting competently with clients, paying your bills, voting, and behaving as an adult in your relationships. And now go deeper. And as that competent adult, find that small child inside of you. Notice how that child holds your curiosity, your need to elicit love and approval. And for many of you, because you chose this profession, the need to take care of those around you. And when you found that little one inside, look at it and feel its gaze coming back to you, and let yourself know if this little one inside deserves to be taken care of. fed, protected, allowed normal sleep, loved, kept around loving people, and everything else a human needs. Will you commit to taking care of this child in you? And will you, as an adult, keep this child back from situations in which you need to act like an adult? Now, I want you to imagine walking through a normal day, attending to adult things, while taking care of and protecting this child. Make sure that this child is fed, hydrated, well slept, and entertained. And make sure that your adult self keeps this child out of situations that call for adult behavior. Walk through letting your adult decide what your boundaries will be with your work, your families, and the needs of all others. And when you are ready, hug that child inside and feel that young heart beating inside your heart and those lungs breathing with you. And come back fully to the room and back to the space. So just take a breath and let it go. And could you write your reactions in the chat? And if you were doing your progress notes, that's fine too. Good, okay. Thank you, Penny, for being honest. Thank you, Amanda. Thanks, Dolores. Oh, thank you, Lexi. Amanda. Andrea. Needed a break from the notes. Good. Okay, Deb, would you mind just randomly picking one of our participants here who are being so vulnerable and honest and just kind of get a perspective?
Sure. First I unmuted Penny Starrett. Starrett.
Yes, Andrea, I will send a copy.
I don't know. Penny, are you able to unmute? Penny Starrett? Let's see here. She may be. Okay, let's see. Teresa Geyer, are you able to unmute?
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you.
So you just want me to comment on what I wrote?
Yeah, just talk about what that experience was like.
Well, what it was like is interesting because, it's all about self-care and all the things that we preach. But when I was doing it, what I first put down was I want to teach this child self-reliance. So they aren't dependent on anybody, which is a little bit of me there. And then again, yes, I would definitely want to take care of the child, but not without helping them learn how to do that themselves, depending on age, blah, blah, blah. So,
Yeah.
And I think Penny was maybe able to unmute now too, if you wanted.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Teresa. I appreciate that. Yeah, what we want to do is make sure we can pull the child into us as the adult and let the child trust us now as the adult to make sure that we are taking care of their needs. Right? So that's kind of where we want to get to with our relationship with our inner child. Okay. Yeah, Penny.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, Okay, good. I'm sorry, technical difficulties. It's the best of both worlds, right?
It's okay. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know, something's happening with my microphone. I'll let you pose the question, I guess.
Yeah, we can hear you. So just kind of tell us what that experience was like for you. You said maybe more confident in attempting to take baby steps is one of the things that you
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I used it more of like, I guess I want to make sure I'm understanding the activity correctly. I used it more of a self-reflection.
Yeah.
And so for me, as we begin to talk about the things to try and do, like commit yourself to doing for yourself and that inner child, it became quickly like almost anxiety ridden because not knowing that I can fully commit to all those tasks. And so reminding myself to maybe take a different approach is in terms of like those baby steps. Just I use the same analogy as like losing weight. Like somebody wants to lose 50 pounds and that can be quickly overwhelming, but, taking baby steps, 2 to 5 pounds over a period of time. So trying to be forgiving of oneself because we have a hard time with change.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Penny. I appreciate your vulnerability and honesty to share in a huge group of people, some of those things. And I know a lot of people can relate also to what you're saying.
And if I may, when I'm working with clients, I used my own personal visions and views of how I might approach things, knowing that they may have the same challenges. So knowing that we're all human, and that's my last comment.
100%. Yep. And it takes time. Yeah. So I wanted to just notice what we did there in that activity. Okay. So we were able to change your state, first of all, from kind of this outside overwhelming, doing our progress notes, all of these outside things happening. And we were able to get quiet. Most of us were able to get quiet and go inside. So that's already a change in your state. Okay. We were also able to access the child part of us, and we shifted from our adult to our child in a very quick way. And we were able to get them to talk together and to kind of explore each other. And some of us had a great relationship, and some of us were kind of weirded out, didn't know really what to do with this child part. So what we're doing there is just just exploring, right? These different ego states and these different parts that live inside of you. And the purpose of that is to allow the child piece of you to really learn to trust you as the adult. And we're going to go into that a little bit of how to do that, because some of us are still working on finding our adult and our true selves and what we want. Okay. So we're going to go on to kind of some definitions now, and I won't take very long on this, but here's the book. And these are the ways that Robin Shapiro defines a couple of different ego states for us, okay? So we each have our adult part. Most of us do. Does anybody work with young adults, like 20s, 30s? You can just write in the chat, yes, I do, 20, 30s. These are kind of what are they? Millennials. Yeah. And so thanks, everybody. Yes. How many of you have heard them say, I don't want to adult. I hate adulting. Adulting sucks. Anybody ever heard that one? Or you want to write your favorite thing that they say about adulting, because they can be pretty funny. Yeah. Yeah. Dolores says it all the time. Yes. Yeah. And some of us say it too, right? I'm 46. Yes, exactly. And I think that, I don't know when that term came out, but it can be difficult to access that adult part that has to go to work, that has to be responsible, right? So that is a part of us. Okay. Oh, I haven't seen the Barbie movie yet, but that's interesting. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Older clients. Okay, good. So we've got that part. And then we just accessed your child part. That can be an infant, a child, a teenager, and a young adult. if you have any clients that have been adopted at a young age, this is a beautiful activity to do for them to get in touch with their infant. Okay. They can hold that infant that was born, and they, as adults, can tell their infant self that they are loved, that they are wanted, that they are valuable, that I'm going to take care of you now type of thing. So we can talk about that. Okay, so then we have our dysfunctional parts, and these are kind of our fight or flight response parts. The one who's out in the field is kind of our flight, right? She's kind of, or he is kind of immobilized. It might be your depressed client who is hopeless, depressed. Then we've got the opposite, the one who might be climbing the tree, the one who might be cutting off the branch. To other people, like they're this kind of like impulsive, hyper alert, ready to run type of thing. So those are kind of a couple of just the dysfunctional parts. And then we have what she calls the ANP, which is our apparently normal part. So this would be for people who are still not quite sure what they're still not quite sure who their adult is. They're still trying to figure out who they are. And yes, this can range from a variety all the way up to our elder clients who are still trying to figure out who they are, right? So so if they're not sure what that would look like, we just call that the apparently normal. So the most normal adult that you could imagine, then we want to pull that part forward to take care of business while you're still figuring it out. And that might look like they have an example of a friend who they think is an adult, or they have an image of a mentor who they think, well, that one's an adult and this is what they do. So I'm just going to pause right there. And someone asked for the image of the parts. I will send that. It's from a PDF. So I will send that as well to you guys of the parts. It's one of my favorite things. Thanks for asking. Okay, so can you think of a client? I won't put any of you on the spot for this one, but can you think of a client that operates from one of these places most of the time? And then just put how it shows up. Like they're mostly depressed and this is how it shows up, or this is their part. They're mostly in their younger adult. Can you just identify, think about one of your clients right now and just kind of write from what part they're normally functioning in? Okay, thank you, Brenda. Yeah, this is usually a lot of our clients who come to, yeah, thanks, Vanessa, that come to us with a lot of trauma, and they've molded into what everybody else wants them to be, right? So they don't really know who they are. They've had to be certain versions of themselves. Number 3, very childlike. Yeah, thank you, Alicia. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks, everybody. Okay, I won't put anyone on the spot right now. So we're gonna go into an activity. So you're gonna need, hopefully you guys all have something to write with, a pen and paper. Number 3, thank you, Jody. And Kimberly already kind of helped us a little bit with talking about the judge and the critic and the, you know, the one who's, you know, very, you know, judgmental. What I would like for you to do for yourself is to you're going to write for yourself 5 of your parts. Okay. And be creative with it, give it a name, like whatever you want to do. Just write down 5 of your own parts that you function in. Okay. And then in the middle column, you're going to say when that part shows up. And then in the third column, you're going to say, okay, is this an appropriate place for this part to show up, or is it not appropriate for this part to show up? Okay. And I'm going to give you like 4 minutes to do that. And then we're going to check in with some of you to share.
Question, do you have like a list of all the possible parts?
Well,
I'm just curious, or do I go by, like, I don't know, or is it something like I decide what my parts are?
yeah, but I'm glad you asked. I can throw some of them out there for you. So we've got like a parent part of us, a sister, we've got a student if somebody's in school, we've got a dog mom or a cat dad, a dog cat, you know, a pet person, we've got an animal lover. Some of us might identify as vegans, some of us might you know, identify, all of us have like a teenager part, a rebellious part, an adventure spirit, a hippie part of us maybe. I saw a hip hop dancer in there, so she, you know, her hip hop dancer comes out sometimes. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, so just be creative and have fun. And when I think it's pronounced Bahar, sorry if I'm saying it wrong, but when it's appropriate, yeah, thank you, Sonia, would be, for example, my child part comes out at work sometimes, right? And so is that appropriate for the child to show up at work, or do you need to show up in your adult self, right? Or sometimes my fight or flight, my teenager comes out when I'm fighting with my partner, right? And so is that appropriate for that teenagery part to come out when you're fighting with a partner? Or is that not appropriate? So just kind of checking ourselves a little bit with the parts. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so would you, those of you that are participating, would you please start to type some of your parts into the chat? So that, and other people will go, oh, I didn't think about that one. Oh, I didn't think about that one. And you can add, to your own list. So just go for it, you guys. Yes, I love it. Just keep going. Sonia, do you have a Tigger part as well? Hall monitor. Oh, I love it. Yes, yes, yes. Oh yeah, Candy, for sure. Thanks, Deb. Yeah. Confident part. Ooh, the reinforcer. Hey, Deb, can we see if we can unmute Zia?
Let's see here. ZIA.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Zia, can you talk?
I'm currently in a coffee shop, but if you can hear me, you can
Yeah, it's a little
hear
bit,
me?
yeah, it's a little bit scratchy, but can you tell us when the reinforcer comes out, a little bit about the reinforcer?
Well, being a clinician, you work in different, I guess, realms of the field. I currently supervise QMHPs and some licensed clinicians. So I feel like that's my title already.
So like, yeah,
It's
so like,
ensuring that reinforcing that everyone is ethically appropriate and that documenting well.
okay. Does that part show up in other parts of your life? Like, does that show up at home by any chance or with your friends?
With friends, yeah.
So, okay. And then do you have to check that part? Like, do you have to say like, oh, I'm not a reinforcer in this area?
Yeah, I think with friendships, sometimes people just call you to vent. Sometimes people call you because they had a bad day. You don't need to point out, I don't need to point out maybe what they may have done wrong to have a better day or or how to fix the problem. Just understand that people are just speaking and they just want to be heard. But 100% I have to check that in my personal life.
I love that. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that, Zia. Yeah, that's a good,
No
that's a
problem.
really good example. Yeah, thank you. Good. Okay, Candy. Nice. Can we unmute Candy?
She is unmuted.
Hi, Candy.
Hello.
Can you share a few of yours?
Yeah, so I kind of focused on the parent part because I chuckled a little because my son is 20 years old. He's 6'3" tall. He's built like a linebacker. But I often tell him that I would stand in front of him, if he was in a fight. He doesn't need me, but as a protector, in that parental role, sometimes I, take it and he just kind of rolls his eyes like, Mom, calm down. I'm fine.
Yeah, for sure. So like and there's no wrong answer, okay? Is it appropriate or not appropriate?
Well, I think emotionally it's appropriate because part of my job is to protect him. But physically, it's not really realistic. He doesn't need my help in a physical situation to protect him. As a matter of fact, recently he actually had to pick me up for something because I had an injury and he literally picked me up. So, there's some, it could probably, I could let a little bit of it go, but I'm his mom. It doesn't matter what his physical stature is. I'm your protector.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, good. I love that. Thank you. I appreciate that. I know a lot of parents are going like this right now, for sure. And then Candy, you also had a rebellious part when you're challenged. Can you talk to us about her?
Yeah, so sometimes I'm a rule follower. So I want things to go according to plan. We have rules and policies and procedures in place for a reason. And so I'm one of those people that like to follow them. And sometimes I find that, I give a little bit of pushback when somebody goes against the grain, or if they want to do something a little different. And I think that there are times when that's rewarded. So there have been times when someone in my space has said, I'm glad you brought that up. You're right. We should be following this policy. And sometimes it's like, well, we need to think outside the box. So maybe it's time to change that policy. So I think it's just dependent on the situation as to whether or not it's appropriate.
Very good. Good. So you can fluctuate between the rebellious and the rule follower depending on the
Definitely.
situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I like that. Well, yeah, and I think a lot of us do have that ability to flex in and out where our clients might not. Right? Like we have some of our clients that are constantly in that teenage rebellious phase, or I don't want to hear anything anybody wants to say. Like, I know what's best. They're in kind of that egocentric mode for sure. So I think as therapists, we're able to flex back and forth with those. Yeah, so thank you, Candy.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you, Sonia, Alicia. Yeah, the safety police. Yeah, mine is the safety monitor. Yes, the therapist is definitely a part. Can we unmute Andrea to talk about this one?
She is unmuted.
Are you there, Andrea? I see that you're unmuted. Can you hear us, Andrea?
That's weird. I don't know why.
That's okay. She can figure. She says, oh, she's not sure. Okay, what about Brenda? Can we unmute Brenda?
Sure. Okay. Let's see, Brenda.
Here,
Yay.
Hey, Brenda, how are you?
okay.
Thank you. Can you talk about this? What you wrote? You said, I'm a coach and recently discovered that a client identifies as neurodivergent. And looking into what that actually meant, I discovered that I have similar characteristics. This part shows up, my part that shows up is professional and caretaker. It shows when I feel I'm viewed as a role model. It's inappropriate. Oh, so yeah, so talk to us about that.
Well, this came as quite a shock to me because I've been working with this individual for a year. And the way that they presented themselves in our initial interactions as someone who was burned out, overworked, overstressed, not feeling valued and appreciated. And my way of working with them was to treat them as such. And it wasn't until a year later, like 3 weeks ago, that they told me, well, I'm neurodivergent. It's like, how could I possibly have missed that? And so I went into research mode to figure out what was it that I could have done differently in order to support her. At the same time, when I talked to them about it, they said, well, you did everything exactly like I needed it when I needed it. So there was nothing that you did that you should feel challenged about because you gave me what I needed when I needed it. On the other side of some of the characteristics that they displayed, as I said, like those are a lot of characteristics that I have. And they come, at least I thought, come from a place of being burned out, overworked, overstressed. A lot of those things that women display when they get into situations where they feel that their backs are against the wall, there's no other way for them to react so that they're not being responsive. So yeah.
I love that. I mean, there's so many things that you said there that relate to parts in terms of the way that you handled that situation, first of all, with a lot of class and humility. your adult part really showed up there to address that with your client, to research those things. Like that is your adult part coming straight up front, and such a good job of handling that with your client. And then also too, like I'm hearing that there's this burnt out part of you, right? That's like, this like, and I bet you I would just be 100% certain, maybe 95% certain that all of us on here are experiencing some level of burnout after, all the stuff that we've been through in this profession in the last, 3-4 years. So yeah, no, I really appreciate that. Thank you for sharing and being, vulnerable and open to sharing in this venue. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so Andrea, are you working now? It says that you're on mute. Can you hear us, Andrea?
Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. It's a different Andrea. Let's see.
Like she switched her laptop.
There we go. Sorry. Now, sorry, I didn't
Oh,
realize.
no, that's fine. Can
Here
you
we
hear?
go.
Yeah, we got you, girl. Yeah,
Thank
talk to
you.
us.
I mean, like you're right. I was doing notes on one laptop, hearing another one. So I wanted to put my part in because I don't know if there's other therapists in here. I'm pretty sure there is. It's very difficult, I've noticed, when you're having a full day back-to-back sessions and then you come home and maybe your partner is asking you to listen in on their day, and all you're maybe thinking is still being in that mindset of solution rather than just holding space for them. And it happens sometimes. There was a time it happened recently and I was like, oh, God, I'll be more receptive towards that. My partner was like, receptive? What are you talking about? So he was a little like reminding me, but it happens with my girlfriend sometimes, and it's more of getting out of that space when I leave the office or when I'm done doing notes to really hone in on that's part of me, that's not all of me.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Bye, Kimberly. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely, Andrea. I think, can anybody relate? If you can just put in the chat to relating to that therapist part showing up pretty loud at times. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard, y'all. Look at all these people. Yeah. Yep. 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 So there you go. Yeah, lots of people in that. And it's hard. I mean, too, like I know, I think that as therapists, it's hard for us to get into a more, well, you use the word receptive, but for us to receive, right? So there's this part of us that that is constantly, I guess, making deposits all day into other people, right? And so it's hard for us to receive deposits back. So if I would encourage anybody to do anything, regardless of parts today, is pour into yourself and allow your support system to pour into you outside of work, and to really try to turn that therapist part off. Easier said than done. So, all right. Thank you guys so much. Let's go on, because we're going to continue to access parts in the next couple of slides. So here is a scenario. Okay. And I will be asking for volunteers too. So we had talked about the critic and the judge. There's a perfectionist too. A lot of us are perfectionists. I'm not. I have other parts, but a lot of us are perfectionists. I work with a lot of perfectionists. And I want you to just think about, like, what is the function of that? Like when did that part show up? What's the function of that part? And this is a great question to ask your people. Yeah, thank you, Sonia. Please feel free to go in the chat with that one. Is to ask our clients, right? Well, when did that perfectionist show up? You'll hear like you might hear clients like they read you an email 17 times, or they will read you a paper that they wrote for our college students 2 or 3 times. They'll sit over a text message for, yeah, exactly, Tiffany. Before they send out the message. So this is definitely something to explore a little bit about, how does this part show up for you, and is it working, right? Are these things working for you anymore? So we've got a perfectionist. And so I want you to just kind of look at the screen for a second, and you see this woman, and she is free and carefree, and she's jumping into a lake. And so here's your scenario. You go for a drive, and you have an opportunity to stop along the side of the road and jump in the lake, assuming the lake is not man-made and in Arizona. You have an opportunity to jump in a lake, and you may or may not have a swimsuit, you may or may not have a towel, and there's some people that are doing it and some people are not. So I want you to think about, for you personally, what are each of these parts screaming, okay, as you're trying to make this decision? So go through those, and then Deb and I will choose a volunteer to share out. So just take a minute. Penny's got to check the temperature. Deb's got to make sure she can see the bottom. Oh, this is interesting, Sonia. Okay. Sherry. Okay. Okay, there's our time. Hey, Sherry, if you can, Deb, can you unmute Sherry for a second? I love everybody's.
She's unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, Sherry, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. So what's this about? I don't have time to be jumping in a lake.
Well, it was interesting as I thought about it. My first thought was like, oh, that sounds like fun. But the perfectionist in me, the thought that went through my head was, do I actually have time to do that? Right. So it was interesting that just my perspective on where I was at, like more in my emotional headspace, made a huge difference. Right. So if I was there just to have an adventure and play, that sounded great, jumping in the lake. And if I was not there for an adventure, but because I'm trying to get stuff done, it was an annoyance.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah. So what was the part of you, that intuition, right? What was the one that came out that said, oh, that sounds like fun? Like what's her name?
Well, I don't know if she has a name, but she's the adventurous one.
Okay. Okay. And when was the last time you accessed your adventurous part?
It's probably been a while.
Okay. Okay. And so what was that emotion like for you when you said, oh, that looks like fun, and you let her out a little bit? What emotion did you feel?
Well, probably, I don't know if relief is quite the right word, but just like, oh, finally, there she is. Kind of that feeling of like, oh, it's good to see you. It's been a while.
Right, right. Okay. And then the perfectionist came in and took over.
Right.
Right. And so what was the result of that for you? Was there emotion that was elicited that you can identify?
Well, yeah, I think I was gonna say disappointment. Maybe kind of the sense of like, man, would you stop doing that? Right? Would you stop like interjecting in any attempt to have fun? Was as sort of there's kind of the thinking, but the feeling of like discouragement or disappointment probably went with that thought.
Okay, interesting. Okay, good. So in our next part of one of the interventions that we'll do, I'll make sure that we have time for it because it's the most fun one, is that what we'd want to do is try to get the adventurous one and the perfectionist to like work together, right? And then have you as the adult facilitating that conversation, that you're the CEO of your parts, right? And so we
Okay.
want to have you get those two in conjunction. So I might come back to you when we do that activity and see what interactions they had.
Sure.
So, all right, Sherry, thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing that. Can anybody like identify with Sherry? I see a lot of people going, me too, me too. I don't have time. Yeah, for sure. Okay. All right, awesome. Thank you. So let's go to another scenario. Okay. Thank you, Letty. Good for you, girl. Good for you. Okay. So you remember that you're doing this activity, you're doing these activities with yourself in mind, as well as how can you use this for your clients? Okay, I would encourage you to kind of do the stuff for yourself so you can get an idea of what your clients would be experiencing if you were to do these things. Okay, so here's your second scenario. You want a new job. Nobody in here wants a new job, right? Everybody's happy with where they're at. This is just hypothetical, okay? But you want a new job, but you've got really good benefits where you are. The people are okay. There's no drama. But you're just no longer passionate about where you are and you want to start exploring other opportunities, but you're fearful of change and you don't want to lose the benefits that you have at this current job. Okay, I know that's not familiar for anybody, but go through those different parts. Okay, feel free to type it in the chat. I'll give you 1 minute. What would each of those parts have to say about this? Awesome. Thanks, you guys. Good. Linda, I would encourage you. Who's the one that goes with their gut? That's one of your parts there too. There's one that's exploring options, and then there's one that's going with the gut. So explore who those two are. Deb, can we unmute Patrick Simmons?
Patrick, you are unmuted, or there you go.
Am I now?
Hi, Patrick. Yeah, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. Okay, so I'm not familiar with George Custer. You said the George Custer part. What can go wrong? Can you tell me what that means?
Sure, that would be George Armstrong Custer from Custer's Last Stand, 1876. He was an adventurous kind of guy, and he said, I wonder what's over that hill. He had a mission and decided he was going to complete it. It just didn't turn out real well. The 7th Cavalry died to a man, but he did what he felt he was led to do. So what can go wrong?
Okay, so with that, thank you, by the way, for the reference. Do you identify with that part?
All too frequently, sometimes to my success and sometimes to my failure. I'm 76 years old and I've had wonderful opportunities throughout my life. And if you say I'm or if I say I'm worried how this might turn out, it usually doesn't turn out well. Sometimes you have to say, I'm qualified, I'm going to try it, and that's how it's going to work out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing that. Okay, good. I see a lot of people in their adult self weighing the pros and cons. The critic says, Amanda Claxton says, the critic would suck it up, the teenager would dump it, and the adult would stay put. I think that's pretty accurate. All right, good. Did anybody have any emotions that came out of this? Like when Sherry was saying there was a little bit of, I can go for that. And then no. Mm-hmm. Hey, Deb, can you unmute Leslie Carrasco?
So you should be able to just unmute since I had her.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Leslie, hi.
Yes, hi.
I'm curious, where did you get that statement from? You said, better the
Better
beast.
the beast you know than the one that you don't.
Yeah.
Gosh, where did I hear that? I think I heard it from a movie, and it's like, you know, it's like when you kind of know what you're already in, and so it's like you weigh the pros and cons, but then you don't also know what you're weighing them against because you don't know what you're walking into. You know what I mean? So a lot of people stay in the same situation because they know it. So like the beast that you know versus the one that you don't, because it could be worse on the other side. So that's where I get stuck sometimes, you know?
So who's the one, first of all, I want to look at who taught you that, but this, because there's another saying for that too. It's not coming to my mind right now. But who's the one that's saying, like, is there a part that's saying you don't know what's out there, so you should just stay put because it could be worse? Like, is there?
I feel like, yeah, I mean, probably like the critic, right? Like
grass is greener on the other side.
That might be one.
Yeah.
Yeah. That might be one. But okay, so you think that's the critic that's coming?
I think so. I mean, that would make the most sense to me. Or maybe even the adult, because you don't really realize like the truth in that sometimes versus like when you're an adult and you have more experience. Like teenagers, I feel like they go a lot of, like they don't have a lot of wisdom and because they haven't lived life long. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's good to explore. I don't know.
Okay.
Someone said the skeptic. Maybe that sounds real. The skeptic.
Yeah. Yep. And we always want to look at, you guys are doing awesome, by the way. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate everybody sharing and being vulnerable and, you know, just thank you for showing up today. But we always want to look at what's the function, right? So like, what is the function of the skeptic? What's the function? And most of the time we'll notice that it is to keep us safe or perceived safety, right? All right, so we're going to go into our last activity because I'm looking at time and this one's really fun. So if you're available and open, if you have paper, I'm going to direct you of what you're going to draw. And this is really fun if you're doing an in-person session. You can even do it online. And I always have my clients come with something to write on. They know the drill. And it just keeps them engaged in a little bit of a different way. So you guys heard me a little bit with Sherry kind of give a preview. And this is not the one that I want you to do. So I'm just going to walk you through it. This is one example that's on the screen, but what I want you to do is look at the parts that you wrote down earlier. Okay, so you guys had your list of your parts that you wrote down earlier. Okay, and you're going to draw a conference room. Okay, so it could be a circle, it can be a rectangle, You could be sitting in a meadow somewhere, but this is called the conference room. Another word for this one is called Frazier's table. So I'll write that here in the chat, or conference room, okay? And I think for therapists, what I'm gonna have you all do is, first of all, just kind of imagine yourself at the head of the table as the CEO of all of your parts. So you are the adults and you're sitting as the CEO at the head of your table, okay? And I want you to just notice, you can do this first with your, just kind of thinking about it. You're gonna kind of notice all your parts walking into your conference room. Okay, so a child will walk in, your skeptic might walk in, your perfectionist might walk in, the dog mom will walk in, cat mom, the reinforcer, have all of them kind of walk in and notice how they interact with each other at the table. Okay, so I'm gonna just put like 2 minutes on the clock, and if you want to, you can draw them coming in, or you can just write the name of the part. Notice where they sit. Okay, your judge or your critic might be sitting directly in front of someone. Notice where your little version sits, if they sit right next to you, or just kind of notice, okay? And we'll have 2 minutes. And if you have questions, put them in the chat and I'll answer in the chat if you have questions. Ashley, can you hear me now? I had it on mute because I was giving you guys 2 minutes to do the activity. So hopefully you can hear us now and we're back. All right. So, I'm sorry, Ashley. Can anyone else hear me? Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. We'll have her come back maybe. Okay. All right, everybody. So that is called Frazier's table, and I have it on the slide differently. I switched up the intervention for you specifically as therapists. The one I have on the slide is for a client who is not resourced, and they do not have these ideas of these parts that work for them. And what they would do is they would come up with different qualities that would bring in a resourced adult. So they would draw in courage and they would draw in strength. But for you, just for you today, we did it a little bit differently. So I would love for somebody to, let's start by just putting in the chat what that was like to do your conference table, to be the CEO, and just kind of type a little bit about what you did with that activity with yourself. Again, super flexible, no judgment on this end. Just type a little bit in there. Thank you, Naomi. Man, you've got a judge and a perfectionist. That's pretty tough. One of the things that you could do, Naomi, is access your parent part and have your parent part talk to the judge and the perfectionist, because I imagine that you don't talk to your children the way that you talk to yourself. So are you a judge and a perfectionist with your children? I would say that you're not. So how would you talk to yourself in the parent part to your perfectionist? Nice, Jessica. I like what you did. You made it meaningful for yourself. Life priorities were sitting closer to you. I love that. You had the things that didn't seem to serve you away from you. Oh, thank you, Teresa. Deb, can we unmute Vanessa?
She is unmuted.
Hello.
Hey, Vanessa, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Not like you had a choice, but I appreciate you. I'm curious why your parent and your child parts were close to each other and near the door for an easy exit. What is that one about?
Yeah, so I actually did that without even really noticing. When I drew my table and my chairs, two of the chairs just happened to be close to each other. And I just naturally put my role as parent and then also my inner child role next to it. And then I noticed later that it was also by the door. Because as a parent, I always try to be by the door because I never know when my kids have to get up and go to the bathroom or if they're going to have a meltdown. And then also the inner child is just that quick getaway. So being able to leave the situation. So I thought that was really interesting that I just like, I mean, obviously thinking about it, but not consciously realizing that I set them right next to each other and then so close to the door.
Okay, I love that. That's really like interesting insight, right? For you to take
Right.
that with you and say, okay, and then can you tell me about your wife part just because it's fun and
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone else had a spot. And then the last chair just went to me as a wife. And I was just like, you know, I'm just kind of like, that always just gets put on the back burner. And it's not that I don't have a happy marriage. I do. I'm very happily married, but it just didn't pop up at the table. It was just, she's just happily sitting there, like just, you know, not really, no drama going.
Oh, I love that. That's really cool. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's good. Oh my gosh, you guys. And just so everybody knows, I am reading every single one of these comments and they are all valid and wonderful and they all have value. I'm just not calling on everybody, but they're all beautiful. Thank you so much. I did want to check back in on Sherry, if Sherry could come back on and unmute herself and talk to us to see if there was any interaction between I think it was the judge and the adventurer, the one who said she didn't have time to jump in the lake, and the adventurer. If Sherry's there, can you unmute yourself?
Yes. Do you have me?
Yeah. Oh, you just hit mute again. You unmuted and then you hit mute again. Okay.
I don't know. I can't.
There she is. There she is.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm having technical issues apparently.
That's okay.
So the CEO, took its place, and the confident one sat real close. The playful and adventurous ones, they were both in chairs right by each other in the opposite corner by the windows, so they could see out. The perfectionist did something very funny. It came and sat right in the middle of the table. They're like, I'm going to be seen and I'm going to sit in the middle of the table so everybody can see me. And I think was trying to assert authority over the room. And then there was an anxious one who wouldn't sit down, just kept walking around the room. So I was surprised that not all of my parts like actually sat at the table. One's on the table and one's walking. So that was kind of an interesting exercise.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. I think you bring up a really good point. Sometimes the client doesn't let all the parts in. There are some that stay out. They call them rejected parts. So they might notice it, because what you can do is have them sit and do this with their eyes closed first as a visual, and they bring in everybody in as a visual. And this could be a resource for going to a family reunion that they're upset about, or having a difficult conversation with somebody. But what they find sometimes is that they might find someone knocking at the door that wants to come in, that they're not letting in. They might have people peeking in the window, walking around, like you said. Deb said she has a judge in 2 of her seats, and it was really crowded. So that can happen too. You might need to pull in extra chairs. Some people find you could do this with like a meadow. If it feels too claustrophobic, the client can sit in a beautiful meadow or around a lake or wherever you want to do it. But I know we're short on time. I know we have to end. And so Deb, I'll let you close out, but I just want to thank you guys so much. And if you have any comments in the chat for me, or email Deb any reactions to the training so I can get better, what you liked, what you didn't like, I would really appreciate feedback. So thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
This is so amazing. Like, I learned a ton of stuff. Goodness. Not all, I learned I have tons of parts. I have like 13 parts. Holy mackerel. There's probably more in there too, as you start thinking about like who you are and what you do, and fascinating. And I'm glad I'm not a therapist, because goodness.
Yeah. Well, I see a lot of people wanting more time and wanting to extend it. So if anyone's interested in that, you and I can talk, and I can always do another one with even more and extending it out even more, because there's so many things to do.
Oh yeah, that would be very cool. I will, yeah, that would actually be awesome. Maybe we can look at like November or something and doing like a parts work part 2. That would be super cool. Thank you everybody so much for joining, and thank you, Katie, for sharing this today. I loved your style. I apologize if I was slow on the uptake with the muting and unmuting, but then we figured it out. And so that was super cool. I'm definitely, so I definitely know that's how it works for future, and maybe even doing like some sort of CEU, like an actual workshop, rather than, where I can do it, put people, I don't know, and, we could do putting people in rooms or things like that. So we'll definitely talk about that. I have a QR code on the screen. If you would like to leave a review, we always appreciate that. I will be emailing out your certificates as well as a copy of the slides this afternoon. If you have any additional questions, I will put, if it's okay with you, Katie, I'll put your email address and information in that. Awesome. That way, if you'd like to reach out, we can definitely, it was very cool. I didn't have any idea what this was when I started, and now I have so much information. I feel like I need to go to therapy. Probably everybody who's a therapist is like, oh my gosh, like my head's like a bag full of cats half the time. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. Thank you again, Katie. And again, I will get excuse me, I will get your certificate sent out this afternoon. And I hope everyone has a wonderful and amazing rest of the week and a great weekend. And we'll see you all next month.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.